All right. So navigating with simple English, it's kind of like having that universal key, especially when you're just starting out with the language.
Yeah.
Unlock new experiences and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. It really is. And it's actually incredible how much confidence even like a few basic phrases can give you, right? It's not just about like finding your way around.
Right.
You're opening doors to connect with people.
Yeah.
And cultures.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we're taking this deep dive today, right?
Absolutely.
Is into this episode of English Fluency Time. And they focus on a super practical skill.
Yeah.
Asking for directions. We have your source material right here.
Yes.
And it seems like they really break things down for beginners.
It's a smart choice. It's a really smart choice of topic. Because if you think about like those first steps for a new language learner, feeling lost, right?
Yeah.
Literally, figuratively, that can be a real confidence killer.
Yeah.
So mastering directions really helps you overcome that hurdle right away.
It does. Okay, so let's unpack this episode a little bit.
Okay.
They kick off with some essential vocabulary,
Yeah.
right? Real basic stuff.
Yeah.
The kind of words you'll use constantly. Where, how, left, right, straight. Even examples like where is the bus stop? Like super basic building block stuff.
Yeah. It's like building those language Legos.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Just those basic building blocks.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really interesting is they don't just stop at the directions themselves.
Okay.
They also introduce nouns for like common places.
Okay.
Bank, hospital, supermarket. These are all places you're likely to look for as a new visitor or a new resident of an area.
Right.
So it's genius to start building that vocabulary foundation early on.
Yeah, and one thing that really stood out to me was how much the podcast really emphasizes politeness.
Yes.
They keep going back to that, like, excuse me, can you help me?
Right.
Seems so simple, but I guess it can make a big difference, especially in different cultures.
It's a brilliant strategy because they're weaving cultural awareness right into that language learning.
Right.
When you're a beginner, it's so easy to get caught up in, like, memorizing words and grammar.
Right.
But this is showing that it's so crucial to understand social etiquette as well.
Yeah.
The social etiquette that comes with language. So starting with a polite phrase, it can really smooth the way for those early interactions.
Literally.
Yeah. It's not just about, avoiding awkwardness.
Right.
For a beginner, that initial, like, excuse me, that can be a huge confidence booster. It's like saying, hey, I'm learning. I might make mistakes, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
And people are usually incredibly patient and helpful when they see that you're making an effort.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Right.
So it's like that one little phrase really sets the tone.
Yeah, it really does.
Okay, so you got your polite intro down. Now what?
Right.
The podcast kind of dives into the nuts and bolts of asking for directions.
Yeah. They lay out that basic sentence structure. Excuse me, how do I get to the park?
Right.
So it's like a simple formula that you can adapt with different vocabulary.
Right.
Right. And they emphasize you don't need to be like a grammar expert to make yourself understood.
Yeah, that's so reassuring.
Right.
But I'd probably still be nervous to actually use it in real life.
Of course.
Like I can learn it and practice it.
Yeah.
But to actually do it,
And that's where this next part of the podcast is so genius.
Okay.
Because they actually do a little role playing,
Wow.
pretending to be a tourist, asking for directions.
Right.
They even throw in some humor, to lighten the mood.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really nice.
It's funny. It's really funny.
It is.
It's one thing to read about asking for directions. But to hear it play out in a real conversation, that's different.
Absolutely. And by modeling that interaction, it gives learners a blueprint. How those phrases actually work in practice. It's like having a dress rehearsal for a real life conversation.
Yeah, and I love that they don't just leave you hanging after you ask the question.
Right.
They actually prepare you for those common responses you might get. It's near, or go straight and turn right, or even, I'm sorry, I don't know. So they prepare you for that.
Yeah.
I think that would make things way less intimidating, honestly,
Absolutely.
to know what to expect.
And it reduces that deer in the headlights feeling you might get when someone starts speaking a language you don't fully understand.
Right.
It's like they're giving you a cheat sheet
Yeah,
to navigate those initial conversations.
totally. Okay. And then they wrap up with just some super practical tips for beginners.
Yeah.
One that they really hammer home is speak slowly and clearly.
Right.
I mean, I know it sounds so obvious.
Yeah.
But I can totally see myself getting flustered and rushing my words.
It's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
But they make such a good point about how, like, slowing down actually helps your pronunciation.
Okay.
Because it gives you time to form those sounds properly. It makes it easier for the other person to understand you.
Right. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Right. Right.
So they also talk about using body language.
Yes.
Pointing, gesturing,
Yeah.
all those things can help get your meaning across, even if you don't have all the right words.
It's a great reminder that communication is so much more than just words.
Right.
Body language adds another layer of meaning, especially when there are language barriers.
Yeah.
A simple point or a gesture can speak volumes.
It can. Their final tip is all about practice, practice, practice.
Yes.
They really stress the importance of, finding those low pressure situations to try out your phrases before you actually need them.
Yeah.
I think they even suggest asking for directions in your own city, even if you already know the way.
That's such a smart strategy.
Right.
Because it takes the pressure off. Allows you to focus on just getting comfortable with the language.
Right.
It's like, practicing your dance moves in the studio.
Yeah.
Before you hit the dance floor.
Exactly. So, okay, we've covered a ton of ground here.
We have.
I'm curious, from your perspective as a language expert.
Right.
What's like the biggest takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that you don't need to wait till you're fluent to start communicating.
Right.
Like even a handful of simple phrases delivered with confidence and a smile that can open up a world of possibilities.
It really can.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has really changed my perspective on it.
Yeah.
It's like instead of being intimidated by that language barrier, you can actually use those like early stages of learning as a chance to connect.
Absolutely.
Like in a more authentic way.
Yeah, and just think about the impact that can have on your overall language journey.
Yeah.
When you experience those early successes, those moments where you successfully communicate, even with, those limitations, it fuels your motivation.
Totally.
To keep going. It's like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if those small victories can actually help you learn faster, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, you're not just memorizing words.
Yeah.
You're connecting them to real experiences.
Exactly. There's actually a lot of research that supports that.
Really?
Yeah, that when you attach meaning to language, when it becomes more than just abstract concepts, it sticks with you so much better.
Wow.
And those early interactions, even the ones that feel a bit clumsy, they're so crucial for building that foundation.
Right. Okay, so to wrap things up, we've kind of explored how mastering simple directions, it can be more than just a practical skill for beginners.
Yeah.
It's a confidence booster.
Right.
A cultural bridge.
Absolutely.
And even a catalyst for deeper language acquisition.
It is.
That's pretty cool.
And remember, the beauty of language learning is it's an ongoing journey.
Huh.
There will always be new words to discover, new challenges to overcome, and new ways to connect with the world around you.
Totally.
So embrace that adventure. Start with that first simple phrase. Excuse me, can you help me?
Who knows? Maybe you'll discover something new along the way.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Of course, my pleasure.